can I stop you there? There's only like 4,000 places left if you want to be like one of the guys who are like, yeah, I was a subscriber before he was at 200k. So if you don't want to miss out on that, you need to hurry up now because they're going fast, okay? In this video, we're going to give you 10 reasons why Man United could still win the league. I'm joking, obviously. I mean... Every other team gets disqualified. Drug cheats. Oh... Man United get away with being drug cheats? I'm struggling after that. Let me know in the comments below give me a reason why Man United could win the league. I'll tell you what, last time they lost their first two in the Premier League, they went on to win the league. So there you go, there's one. Right, we will dive into the Man United game. Tactically, we're going to have a look at 6 games and we're going to kick off with the Chelsea game yesterday. First and foremost, can I slightly apologise for my reaction yesterday? When you're watching the games on the kickoff, it's really hard to kind of take absolutely everything in because you're chatting away at the same time. And I was getting myself confused with back 3, back 4, been able to dive into it a bit more. And now you can see that actually it's kind of a bit of both. And I thought that was really interesting. I mean, first things first, Tottenham, are they title challengers? Let me know in the comments below how you feel about this one. The reason I say this is because, you know, Conte, in terms of indoctrinating his sort of metal into this team and this squad, there was a lot of things that you've got to like, you know, that sort of non-Spursy persona, of sort of just like finding a way, especially at Stamford Bridge, is something that is kind of noticeable, you know, definitely caught my eye. And the fact that they got themselves out of the problems that they were in this game in terms of the scoreline, does that mean that they are a team that really could, if they're playing well or playing badly, pick up points? Let me know in the comments down below. I think with Chelsea, I found it far more interesting tactically. Let's have a look at it. First and foremost, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. You cheeky little Trojan horse, you. Played in this right wing-back position. You know what I was saying about my sort of struggle here, my woe, because the way I was watching, every time I looked up, there were moments, yes, when it was a sort of back 3, but it was a sort of mix between a back 3 and an elbow back 4 as well. And Reece James, throughout the game, had that sort of license to get forward. And Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who played as a sort of the right wing back, he was facilitating a lot of the times, and Reece James was getting into the same areas that he normally gets in. Let me show you the heat maps for these guys. I'm going to put it on the old zoom. Let's get it on the zoom. Can we zoom? Can we zoom? Can we zoom? Let's zoom. So Ruben Loftus-Cheek, first and foremost, starting, you know, really wide there, but, you know, dotted around the pitch, getting involved in more sort of narrow areas to congest the midfield when he needed to. But also a bit like Henderson in terms of kind of just taking up certain elements of space to be that decoy so that Reece James could still get up the pitch. Let's have a look at Reece James's heat map. Because Reece James, of course, got himself a goal and was able to just kind of be up there for that, which was impressive. But also, generally, he's kind of getting into the positions that he generally wants to be in, you know, staying wide and getting on the ball. So this was really, really interesting from Thomas Tuchel on this right wing, the use of him, and more importantly, the use of Ruben Loftus-Cheek to facilitate Reece James. Reece James in this game, 93 touches, won 5 of his 8 ground duels. Accurate passes were 66, that's 92%. 1 key pass, 1 big chance created, and 1 goal. He was absolutely pulling the strings from supposedly right-sided centre-back. So the use of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, as I said, to facilitate this was so clever, and a great example of how you use a utility player to his best ability. Use that wide skill set that Ruben Loftus-Cheek has to allow the other players to thrive. Really interesting stuff, and a new use for a player who's always felt a little bit kind of lost and not knowing where his home is. Maybe this is it. In terms of the average positions in this game, as I said, Chelsea controlling the game, so many of their players being in the opposition half. I think this is something that they should kind of continue with. And again, the reason I was probably getting confused in terms of feeling like it was a back 4 was because of those 2 centre-backs. And it was actually a 3, wasn't it, with Jorginho sitting in front of him a lot of the time to stop and isolate Harry Kane. But those 2 are so comfortable on the ball that I think this is something certainly they can kind of go forward with. And it allows then you to essentially to have a front 2 in Raheem Sterling and Kai Havertz, which I think really worked for him. So there were some positives there. But Tottenham Hotspur, if you go back to last week's fallout, you'll see it. And actually, I'll show you it quickly. Try and remember this average position here, right? So this is this is the game where they weren't able to get out. And it just shows how important Bentancur is. And if you can stop him, the sort of denial of the double pivot, if you can kind of stop them, it means that the rest of the players can't kind of get on their bikes and you can't get that lovely sort of average positions that you had last week. I'll show you that in a second. But Bentancur only made 24 accurate passes in the match, 73% pass accuracy, which is very unlike him. Different opposition than last week, but he made 56 passes last week, 90% accurate passes against them. And Son and Kulusevski had 29 touches and 23 touches in this game. So they were a lot more isolated. Let me just quickly show you. Here you go. Here's the game against Southampton the week before. And you can just see the huge difference between them, the sort of spread of everyone else. And that came from those two players in the double pivot, getting on the ball, controlling the game. Tottenham in this game against Chelsea really struggled to have that control. And it's going to be interesting to see how other teams attack Tottenham moving forward and try and stop them, and feel like maybe if it's Bentancur that you stop, then you make Tottenham a lot less progressive than they have been in some of the other games. Right, strap yourselves in, Man United fans. Brentford 4, Man United 0. Brentford are a good team, so keep that in mind. And what I will show you very quickly is that actually in the 3-1 defeat at home to Brentford, Brentford lost 3-1 last year. They had a better XG in that game than they did in this one. So as much as it was a shock, it's also kind of been coming, and it shows how football can go either way, and individual errors make a huge part of this as well. But Brentford, this victory's been on its way. And I don't think Brentford fans would have been surprised by this. 4-0, yep, it's a bit of a surprise from that point of view. And the big question, let's do Man United first. With Man United, the question is, with this descent and the problems with the transfer market and all that stuff, and I've done a video talking about why I think Man United are in the state that they're in, do you revert back to the type of football that Solskjaer had them playing? Because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, week in, week out, is looking better and better as a manager. Everyone sort of laughed at him, said he wasn't tactically good enough. Maybe he was just getting the best out of the squad that he had. Because often when I look at what's available there and I think about how they should play, I think about how Solskjaer had them playing. You had that safety of the double pivot of McTominay and Fred. And then you had those players who were able to sort of go and express themselves a little bit. And sometimes they didn't have the answers, but they had the answers more so than they have previously. So that's the big question for Erik ten Hag. Does he feel capable of improving those players individually and collectively to play his way? Or is he going to have to bend and change? Very difficult. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's have a look at how he wants to play first and foremost. So the first principle for Erik ten Hag is that he likes to control a game where possible, and therefore he wants the ball. At Ajax, they averaged 66.5% possession in the league. Now, in the Brentford game, Man United averaged 67% possession. Show you it there. There you go. 67% possession in this game. However, if you go back to the momentum bar on the beautiful SofaScore app, where the link is in the description, you can see that when it comes to a momentum bar, the deeper the lines, the more sort of effective that momentum is, or sort of dominance is, or danger is. And that is the last word I would say, in particular, the first half. Second half, Brentford are having a party by this point, so they're kind of letting them have the ball. And we've seen that a million times where a team's a good few goals up. But in the first half in particular, despite having the ball, did very, very little. So this comes back to then recruitment, and we'll look at the numbers of the midfield in terms of their passing stats in a second. But the fact is that if they don't sign someone like De Jong, for them to play the way they want to play, and again, when we look at the average positions and how middling they are, it's just in the middle of the field. They've got the ball, but they're not progressive at all, or not effectively progressive. If they don't get someone like that, it's virtually impossible for them to have both the threat and the dominance that they want to have as a football club this season. So in terms of that single pivot, against Brighton last week, we saw Fred as the single pivot. Man United failed to control the game. This week, we saw him and Eriksen creating a double pivot. Now, structurally, their average position here is not a million miles off what Erik ten Hag would want from his side. despite the whole team being sort of 5 or 10 yards a bit too deep. Otherwise, it's pretty similar. But that's kind of a problem in itself, because what this shows to me is the fact that you've got players who kind of know where to stand, but they don't really know what to do once they've got the ball. And that is pretty worrying. Or if you want to spin it and be glass half full, that is, I guess, the first base layer of what Ten Hag wants to do. He now needs to get into the minds of these players, and they need to know what they're going to do with the ball and in terms of with their movement to start to affect the game and start scoring goals. Now, there's several factors at play here. You know, the confidence is so low for these players, and also, with that comes a bit of paralysis in terms of how hard they're working as well. There's certainly not a unity within that squad as well, and there's not a trust with them as players at this moment in time. Certainly, you've also got players playing in positions that they don't truly want to play at times, and the midfield, of course, has not been fixed. But the question keeps coming back to me is the fact that, you know, can Ten Hag develop these players to improve and to understand and to play the way that he wants to play? Does he need to bend his will? Last season, Fred, 88%, and McTominay, 86%, were pretty reliable with short passes. Not great on sort of picking up off the defenders, for sure. But generally, those are solid numbers. Fred's short pass completion this season is 83%. He's also been taken off after 45 minutes in both games. McTominay's has fallen off massively as he plays a little bit higher up to 76%, because they're having to play these riskier passes because Ten Hag wants to play them to play the ball forward. So once again, I ask you in the comments, tell me now, do you change the system or do you stick with the system and go through those growing pains? Rangnick moved away from the way he wanted to play pretty quickly because he believed that the squad wasn't up to it. The way it's going with the transfer window, it's obviously not getting to that point where they're going to have the players that they want. And if they don't get De Jong, what do they do? Change the system or stick with the system? Let me know in the comments below. We've got to talk about Brentford as well, who did fantastically well and are just continue to be an example for smaller clubs in terms of how you can go and be a real force in the Premier League. They made it very, very uncomfortable for Man United, as they do most teams that they play. In terms of average positions, as I say, that front five we've got here really sort of pushed and were aggressive against the Man United team. There was absolutely no fear when it came to the midfield and then progressing past them. Otherwise, sat deep a little bit more as well. Rico Henry, interesting here because it looks like he's quite deep, but actually the wing backs, and we spoke about this on the Premier League guide, we talk about Rico Henry and Aaron Hickey and how important they're going to be in terms of Brentford going forward, so that they can kind of have that, not safety net, but play with a back 5-4, whatever you want to call it, but also kind of poke holes in the opposition. Aaron Hickey, let's do Rico Henry first. Although he was very deep, still actually getting on the ball a lot higher up the pitch than you would probably expect from his average position. So being sort of confident and brave to get forward and get involved, because I'm a massive fan of Rico Henry. And then Aaron Hickey on the other side, really, really high up in terms of getting on the ball for Brentford. You wouldn't have expected that, you know, going into this game, but that's what they're going to look to do. And what they do with that, it then allows the midfielders like De Silva and Jensen to sort of get on the ball in dangerous areas and with time and space. I mean, this is something what I must say is just cannot be happening, but it did happen. And so you've got to give players credit when it does happen. Matthias Jensen in particular, who I apologise. Last week I said I don't really think he's good enough for the Premier League. I've been proven wrong. He obviously watches the Fallout. He was getting on the ball in some really, really nice positions and obviously got himself an assist, got himself a goal as well. And as you can see from his heat map here, and again, this is kind of a reflection of how bad Man United were, but also using that width and having bodies there, being able to move up the pitch and him get on the ball just in front of that penalty box. And for a player like him who has got great passing range and vision, what it allows him to do is thread those passes through at times. He obviously showed this sort of the gumption and the desire to get forward and press, and you can see that from that that penalty spot blob, which came from his goal. But also those sort of two spots, as I say, outside of the 18-yard box. From that area, you can thread those balls through, or you can switch the play and use the width as well. And they exposed Man United and made them a lot more open brilliantly, and that was massively down to Matthias Jensen. I'm sorry, Matthias. Arsenal beat Leicester City 4-2 and 2.96 XG to 0.46. Arsenal are perfectly tuned. Last week we said someone is going to get pumped hard on the football pitch. and they're going to score 6 past someone at some point. And I'll tell you what, it is definitely coming, because they were amazing against Leicester. Everything went right for them, completely blew them away. Leicester, I know, are in a sort of odd little place right now, and I guess it's another one where they need to get past that transfer window. But they're just so... Here's the way I would describe it. It's like, you know, when you're learning to drive and you're trying to kind of figure out the gears, and all you can think about is figuring out the gears. And then once you figure that out, you can get your head up and you can kind of go, oh, okay, I'm just driving now. You're not even thinking about that. That's the stage that Arsenal are at in terms of how they're set up, what their sort of passing patterns of play are and passing networks are. And it means that they can then go to this higher level. You know, being elite is about being fluent. And this Arsenal team is getting to a point where it's incredibly fluent at this moment in time. And, you know, top 4, top 3, like, I'm starting to look at this team and go, wow, I mean, maybe, I'm waiting for a wobble, and I'm getting intrigued to see if it happens. But in terms of like that next level of quality, here's a couple of screenshots from an attacking opportunity Arsenal had in the match. And what's great about this is just how well versed Arsenal are in their attacking duties. Saka has the ball here. Odegaard makes the run that creates potential space for Jesus to exploit at the near post. However, this Arsenal team aren't that one-dimensional, because it's actually a runner that isn't even in the picture. It's a trick question that Saka ends up finding, which is Zinchenko, as we see in the second screenshot now. Even in the second stage of this play, Jesus is switched on. He's making runs into the 6-yard box, which shows not only this side is well coached, but also that he is a natural striker, as we have mentioned before on the channel. Ben White's position here is actually really interesting as well. You've got Zinchenko making that aggressive run into the box, but Ben White takes up a position on the edge of the box, kind of in the half space, which is to sort of help possession, recycling, and sort of scooping up any of the scraps that kind of pop out. And also, you know, the guys played defensive midfield before as well, so this is something to keep an eye on. This is something Burnley have been doing in big detail. There'll be a video on League of 72 very soon, actually, talking about that as well. So maybe this comes from the sort of school of Pep Guardiola, where you've got Company and Arteta both looking into this at this moment in time. In terms of the average positions, Arsenal so stretched out. It shows how kind of vertically they are playing as well. And the polar opposite, I guess, is Leicester City. You've got Jamie Vardy there, who's behind James Maddison in the average positions. Again, very flat, playing the ball side to side and just not really getting anywhere near the goal, partly due to the sort of suffocation from Arsenal defensively, but also just not totally at it right now. Not as effective as they have been in previous years. And also, I feel like they're missing Harvey Barnes quite a bit at this moment in terms of taking players out of the game and then allowing Vardy to run up the pitch. One player I've got to talk about, pound for pound, the best player in the Premier League right now. What a debut for Gabriel Jesus. 2 goals and 2 assists on your home debut. Doesn't get much better than that. I had a mate who took him out to get Haaland in and put Mitrovic in, and he paid the consequences. Everyone's got him on FPL, rightly so. And as I say, in terms of influence, pound for pound, the best striker and best player in the league, I've got to be honest. In this match, 55 touches, so influential already. He's really feeling himself, and it's great. You know, it's great for Arsenal. You've got someone like that. It's going to be interesting to see. Like, you've got to kind of keep Nketiah happy as well, but maybe those two will be enough. You just want to make sure he stays fit. In this match, as I said, 55 touches in the game, which is a ludicrous amount, really, for a central striker. To put it in perspective, I guess it's a very different style of play, but Haaland had 8 touches. Very different. His presence in the box, it can't go untalked about either. So far, over the first 2 games, he's averaging 8 touches in the box per 90, which is in the top 2% of all forwards, wide forwards and central forwards, not just strikers in Europe. Guy looks unstoppable, especially with the ball at his feet. Comes short, runs in deep, drifts out wide, has so much to him, and in the prime of his career. Really, really exciting time for Gabriel Jesus and for Arsenal fans at this moment in time. Manchester City 4, Bournemouth 0, XG of 1.75 to 0.13 for Bournemouth. I'm not laughing at Bournemouth. What I would say is that, like, if you're a Premier League fan, watch the odd Championship game, because I think you'll enjoy it, because you have 2 teams that sort of go at each other, and there's a lot of these games, and I've got to say, this isn't how you really want to see football occurring, and by that I mean, you know, the fact that 48% of this game was played in the Bournemouth third, not the Bournemouth half, the Bournemouth third. But what are Bournemouth supposed to do? I'm not having to go Bournemouth in any way. And Man City, they are sort of evolving in front of our eyes. Let's have a look at Man City here. Because, I mean, to be honest, they could play Edison in midfield and they would have won this game. But what is interesting is the tactical evolution of having Erling Haaland in this side. 8 touches Erling Haaland had. I think 2 accurate passes, one of which was a kickoff. The other was an assist for Gundogan, right? Again, no one's fault because it was so congested for them. But the roles of Kevin De Bruyne and Gundogan are the 2 that are really interesting here for me. You've got De Bruyne here, highlighted, and then Gundogan there. Let's talk about De Bruyne first, because what's happening with him is it's kind of changing. Before he would sort of drift out far more over to the right-hand side and sort of pick up the ball. Now he's playing as a sort of traditional number 10. I don't think this is a coincidence. I think this is to sort of take the pressure off Haaland from a technical point of view, especially in the final third. I mean, his pass, it didn't change how brilliant he was. He had 46 passes, I think, and they were all accurate, 100%. And that's with him playing in that role. That's amazing, right? Shows how just fantastic he is on the ball. He's kind of been given complete freedom, but also starting with a higher start position. So this might mean less touches overall or less total passes overall, but it's also going to be a bit more of a direct threat. Another one to keep an eye out on FPL, because we know he's so deadly as well, and you saw that from his goal. And he's going to be more directly involved in goals if that's even possible. 5 key passes in this game, 4 accurate crosses, 4 shots, 4 dribbles, 100% success rate, ridiculous. 1 goal and 1 assist. So that's one element of it in terms of De Bruyne's position on the pitch. The next one is Gundogan. Now, I think Gundogan could score a lot of goals this year as well. So with the role of De Bruyne resembling a number 10, you're now technically seeing sort of double pivot in terms of Rodri and Gundogan. Now, you have seen Bernardo Silva play in this role as well, and I think he will play as a role in that role as well at times. But Gundogan still remains a goal threat. Also because Haaland is sort of sucking in defenders a lot of the time because he's so imposing. So I think there's going to be moments, and we saw it in the West Ham game, but we saw it in this game, of course, as well. He's going to arrive in the box like he always does, but he's going to arrive later than previously because you haven't got sort of Jesus dropping in deep or 2 false 9s or whatever it might be. You've got Erling Haaland playing as a proper striker. So he will get there, but he'll get there a little bit later, which could mean that he's unmarked or untracked. And this is something to certainly keep an eye on when it comes to Man City this year. Nottingham Forest 1, West Ham 0. The XG was 1.36 to 2.38. Of course, a missed penalty in there as well. West Ham, you are possibly the unluckiest team in the league at this moment in time. I don't know how you didn't get anything from this. 8-9 times out of 10, I think you win this game probably by 2 goals as well. I mean, like the highlights of this game were absolutely ridiculous considering it was 1-0. West Ham hit the bar twice, failed to convert a penalty, had a goal ruled out, had 19 shots as well. Now, look, it's not nice losing games, but sometimes in football, they got FM'd, basically. And this happens sometimes. And so I think West Ham fans, you go, oh, look, we should be winning those games. We have higher expectations. Don't worry about it. David Moyes and West Ham will be going on a good run very, very soon. I think it'll be absolutely fine. The focus here has to be on Nottingham Forest. Then we wash away all of that stuff. And come November, this feels like a game where West Ham actually pumped them 3-0. Do you know what I mean? A newly promoted team starting to kind of go, oh, okay, well, the adrenaline's gone now. We're struggling a little bit here. Maybe that won't happen because Forest have just made so many incredible signings. Obviously, they need to bed that in. But they do need to improve still, Forest, I think. But they do have individuals that can get them out of trouble. We've spoken about it in terms of the Prem Guide and generally about Forest. They have brought a lot of players that fit the similar profile. They're now getting to a point where they're just buying squad players, it seems, in terms of the way that Forest played last season. But a couple of players, one in particular, Nico Williams, who came in for Jed Spence, I think he was one of 2 players that need mentioning for Nottingham Forest. I thought he did really, really well. Great performance for him. Now, when he arrived, I think there would be that concern, is he as good as Jed Spence? I think if anything, well, he certainly will be absolutely fine in that role and very competent. but he's also possibly a little bit more complete than Jed Spence at this moment in time. There was an amazing cross from him at one point, and he put in 3 accurate crosses, which will be important because they will look to sort of flood players into the box, the likes of Lingard making smart runs, Awaniyi, who's going to be a real force there as well, Brennan Johnson, who was unfortunate with the goal that was disallowed because that was a great finish from him, but 76 touches for Nico Williams, 2 key passes, 3 accurate crosses, as I said, 1 big chance created, 2 successful dribbles, and 2 shots on target. The lad's got it all. So that's a really positive thing to see when you've got a new player coming in a crucial position for Steve Cooper last season. The second one, we've got to talk about Dean Henderson. We have to talk about Dean Henderson because, you know, he has spoken a lot and maybe he talks a little bit too much, but it's frustration. And ultimately, the guy's got personality. So that's something to really, really like. And as a shot stopper, superb. Stopped Declan Rice with the penalty, converting that, 4 saves, and importantly, 3 of those saves were from inside the box. So a few impressive elements. Also, Awaniyi getting off the mark as well is great, regardless of how that happens. And you got the 3 points. So congratulations to Forest fans. Southampton 2, Leeds United 2. An XG of 122 up against 193 for Leeds. A few interesting elements on this. In particular for me, some of the old problems creeping in for Leeds, and also possibly the sort of Germanic pressing style that you obviously Southampton struggle with. Maybe I'm just seeing this due to the fact of the way this game played out, but I wonder if you might see that with Southampton struggled to hold on to Leeds and generally do. Not Leeds the team, I mean football Leeds, I mean when you're in the lead. And Leeds could struggle, and Leeds, the football team now, could struggle to hold on to Leeds. And I don't mean that sort of internally hold on to yourself from a sort of metaphorical point. I'm saying Leeds as in because they were 2-0 up. That's what I'm trying to say. Southampton had 7 shots after the 60th minute, totaled an XG of 0.77 from those shots, more than double what they managed in the first 60 minutes. So that's what I mean in terms of that drop-off. Jack Harrison, really dangerous in this game. Great assist for the ball to Rodrigo. Seems to be scoring a couple of goals. But that loss of Bamford early on, what I see here is just that you do need that focal point. Now, Leeds don't need that focal point to the same degree as other teams because of the style of play that they want to have, playing very vertically. But I still think it just looks a lot messier. Now, this is a little bit harsh because when you make different substitutions, obviously the rest of the team are in different areas, but in particular, Rodrigo, number 19 here, and Daniel James, when he came on, a lot sort of deeper for the team. And I think, if anything, it takes away an option. And when it takes away an option, it takes away a concern. And that can make it a bit easier for the opposition to get a sort of stranglehold on the game. So something to keep an eye on. You've got to hope that Bamford is okay. I don't know much about the injury at this moment in time, but let me know how you feel about that sort of drop-off from Leeds United in the second half of this game. Was it down to Bamford or was it down to the style of play? Let me know, Leeds United fans, in the comments below. And Southampton, happy with the return there. Hasenhüttl seemed quite pleased to get that first point on the board and has been a bit annoyed with some of the stuff that's come out recently. So I'd be intrigued to know how you feel about how Southampton played in this one. So there you go, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Obviously, a few questions are asked throughout. And of course, subscribe to the channel. If you could hit the like button, that'd be great as well. I think I'm going to do a live tomorrow. So make sure you hit the notification bell as well so you are notified. That's the whole point of it. See you in the next one.